It's Monday, April 15th, tax day. Hope you all did your taxes and hope you're getting a huge refund that you didn't expect. With that said, here to welcome our two honored guests. We've got Carl returning for a long time, really one of our best on LinkedIn and live streaming, has his own show on Tuesdays, Instant Riches, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I never miss it, either should you. With that also said, we have Alan Levy, who I've had the honor and privilege to talk to many times on Zoom, and I thought would be a great pair up with Carl, especially as we're focusing on mentorship, which is Alan's area of expertise. With that said, I'll let Carl go first to kind of open the road for Alan and get Carl's update and initial thoughts on mentorship.
Good morning, Don. Good morning also, Alan. It's good to be on the show with you. Looking forward to learning more about what you're going to talk about on the topic of mentorship. I have worn the hat, so to speak, of being a mentor. I claim the hat of being a coach, and I'm curious to see the distinction that you may draw between those two types of hats. But yeah, I was telling Don, this is a busy week. I get to be with Don today and also on Wednesday this week. I have my own show, Instant Funding. Don called it Instant Riches, but it's an aspirational goal, not an actuality. And then I'm doing a presentation on customer-focused crowdfunding at the SuperCrowd 2024 annual online event this week. So it's a very busy week. I'm already looking forward to Friday and winding down. So that's my opening for this morning. Good to be with you.
Alan, glad to have you. And why don't you share a little bit about Alan and what you do and your initial thoughts on mentorship?
Sure, and it's good to see you guys and good to meet you, Carl, because I think this is the first time we've come across each other. And so, yeah, I'm Alan Levy. I'm the founder of Pay Education. So I started the Pay as virtual mentorship more than virtual education. So it's like a different spin on something that many of us are familiar with. And so I like going back 10, 15 years ago, I started mentoring students, young professionals coming into the pharmaceutical industry, where I had spent my career prior to going this direction. And so through the professional society, I was always finding there's like all these topics that schools don't teach. And, that was always where my focus of mentorship really was with them because somebody needed to do it. And it didn't matter what the school was. It didn't really matter, like good students, bad students, like all across the board. It's like there was just things that I was having to always explain to them that I was like, I shouldn't have to talk about this. You guys should know this. And so over the years, I decided there has to be a better way to do that. And that was really where a Pay started from. It was my attempt at a better way to do that. So a Pay is specifically designed with the mission of, teaching the topics that schools don't teach. And there's, like the high school level topics, which I think pretty much all of us are familiar with. It's like personal finance and taxes and insurance and all the things that you hope your parents teach you. But if they aren't competent with it, then, you only get what you get. So, it's like a lot of young professionals get into the bind with, it's like, say you go to buy your first house and you get a shady mortgage dealer and you have no idea and you get taken advantage of. Like, say, with credit cards and insurance and all that stuff. And then the other half of things, which is really where my personal area of focus was with mentorship, was the topics that schools aren't teaching. So my degree is actually in chemical engineering, and which right there by itself is when we went to school, did anybody ever tell you all the different things you could possibly do with your degree? Because by the time you're, 10, 15 years into your career, most of us aren't really doing that anymore. Or certainly not what we originally thought we were going to do. And and within chemical engineering, I found myself, even when I was being like an engineer and a project manager, there's all these things. There's like, okay, I didn't know how to spec equipment. That's kind of fundamentally important for a chemical engineer. They never talk about it. I could size a pump, but I couldn't do anything else with it. I didn't know what kind of materials were appropriate. I didn't have the information to make good educated decisions. And so it's like, to me, that's a lot of the stuff that should be coming out of the schools, but it's not. And so like that's really where the mentor end up having to be in there, because whether it's with your company or you're going external, your professional society, or wherever you're able to get it, somebody needs to provide it, because they don't get it if they don't.
Gotcha. So with that said, it looks like you've created a company that allows professionals to pick up some, let's say, some side money or a side hustle, and allow them to continue to do what they're doing, or allow them to transition, or allow them those who already transitioned to maybe semi-retirement or retirement to stay relevant and active. So how are you growing that, and what are you up to now?
So I started this originally back in 2019 and took a break with it during COVID, because everybody was trying to reimagine virtual education, and I needed that to settle out before I could really grow it. So after that settled out, I relaunched the website with the standard for what virtual education looks like after COVID. And so I'm up to, I think, 29 instructors right now. And so, like when I was doing the original beta version of it, everybody was super willing to help, and it was very easy to find instructors that wanted to be part of it, because everybody knows it's a problem. And so originally I wasn't paying anybody. It was just, they joined because of the mission. And I still have a lot of people that just joined because of the mission. The payment aspect. So if somebody wants to be an instructor on the pay, I vet everybody, because I need to make sure that I'm comfortable with them, providing good information that they're going to do and meet the mission the way I want it done. And once I'm comfortable with that, they can, put together short stuff, which I can literally call shorts. And, it's like little single topic things with like a hot topic of the day, or, it's like, hey, I learned this today at work. I thought you guys should know this too, those kind of things. Or you can put together, full longer courses, which are usually more of like an intermediate or advanced level of topic, more for like the older young professional. And those are monetizable, where the other stuff, it's how do you monetize 5 minutes?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So Carl, what is your background being mentored as well as being a mentor, and how valuable has that proven to you in your career? No, you're
I was trying to improve the audio and it wasn't doing any good. I was going to say that in my career, it's very common for me to be thrown into a new project where I need to know everything yesterday as much as possible. And there's simply no way to get there from here, trying to study, read books, even though I've got 3 books open on my desk right now. They're all supplemental, and they basically help me try to identify somebody who knows so much about the topic that they could be a mentor to me. And so I'm always putting together teams for different projects. I'm always looking for adding somebody to a team who's the expert in the area. And then it depends upon how they set up the relationship. Are they going to be a full tilt consultant? Are they going to be a team member with maybe equity share in the outcome of the project? And then that's where using the different hats. I usually refer to as a mentor as somebody who gives me advice who doesn't expect payment. And I elevate them to a consultant status if they do expect payment. And then we'll see if we both agree that they should get payment, but that's another story altogether. And then I myself, I've mentored a variety of businesses, often through different programs that have been set up to support startups and small businesses, whether they're driven by the environment, they're driven by a local economic development project. It may be something of that nature where I get to ride along while they go through maybe a 10 to 20 week type of boot camp or startup period. And I'm typically one of 2 or 3 people who are teamed with that startup group to try to give them my input, my help, coming from working with hundreds of different businesses through my career. So it's a very valuable tool for startups. I really don't know how a startup could work without mentors. And I appreciate all the people who put together programs to match mentors with these different startups. Because it's hard to go find somebody who you don't know who exists, who you don't understand what you need to know in order to find the right person. It's an immense challenge from the startup standpoint. And one of the benefits of going online, though, is they don't all have to live in your backyard. You don't have to limit yourself to just those you can meet at a coffee shop. You can get online with anybody, anytime, anywhere, and expand your horizon worldwide to find the type of expert you're looking for. So it's a valuable thing. I enjoy when I have the time to be a mentor. I was just recently asked to be a mentor for another group. And I said my bandwidth isn't large enough, but I might be able to come in and put on a afternoon workshop or something along that line on the topic of raising capital, which is a less time commitment on my part. Because being a mentor is to do it well, you've got to be on call with the person you're helping so they know that they can get you and get the information they need as needed when needed.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, in my career, I found mentors through all kinds of different vehicles I never anticipated. Usually it's just somebody you get to know and maybe even go partner with on something, and they become the senior player or the most experienced player, and then they become, without knowing it, a mentor to you and how much you depend on their experience or advice or background to kind of round things out to make you a little bit more complete in your approach. Before swinging it back to Alan, we've got Carrie here today. Chat's wide open. We depend on chat. Carrie's our jokester. Carrie says Charlie Brown was wondering if the beach was a friendly place. When he looked at the ocean, it just waved back. You know, give a hand to Carrie. Dennis, again, who's one of our everyday supporters, 49 years in the same heating and air conditioning business out in Colorado. Teamwork still works, consulting and not insulting. Thanks for reminding us. So, Alan, what typically makes for the best mentor as far as when you identify one? How do you know, hey, this could be somebody who can bring significant value?
Well, for me, because of the platform as well. So, I'm like, personally, it's not necessarily the same thing as like what the right fit is for a pay. So personally, it's having the level of expertise with what I'm having questions on. And like personally, I have any number of mentors. I can't even necessarily say all of my personal mentors because it's like I have different mentors for different things. And I would always recommend having the same for anybody else. And like a mentor is the reason I got started in the business in the first place. Because I was, trying to understand, okay, so how do I launch this? It's like, I know I want to do this, but I can't afford to have no income coming in for like the 2 or 3 years it's going to take to make it profitable. And she was like, oh, well, you can consult on the side. You just keep doing what you're doing and maintain your industry, recognition and all that. Which I was like, okay, well, I wanted to do that anyway, so that's perfect. And and it's things that you don't exactly like Carl was saying. It's things you don't know, you don't know. And they provide that input where you can't possibly do that otherwise because you don't know to ask the question. Where I was saying that there's a bit of a distinction with the pay, it's taking all of that, but also combining that with the fact that if you're going to be doing videos, it needs to be video worthy. So you need to be, personable, and you need to be good on camera, basically. And lots of people can be good on camera, but there's also plenty of people that just sit here and talk monotone, and you can't listen to them without falling asleep. And it's as much as they have really good information, nobody wants to listen to them, so it doesn't help.
Well, I think that's a valid point because I guess that's the challenge to virtual is all they know is what they see and what they hear. When you're around the table with somebody, it gets a little bit more, let's say, personalized. and you're used to it. And I think there's an element of entertainment, right? So entertaining enough to be interesting enough to want people to come back and share and learn more. And I believe actually there has to be an element of trust and confidence that, hey, this person does know something that I might be able to benefit from. But ultimately, it's a two-way street, because for the same reason that someone has to be accessible and open and personable, the other person has to engage. So it's not just one person talking and not getting the questions to get relevant. With that said, I think there's never been a better opportunity than right now, because of what Carl mentioned, having that access to the world, especially on LinkedIn when you get 1 billion people registered, and the ability to pick and choose. In a lot of sense, Google and YouTube are mentors, right? You go to it when you have a question and you get an answer. Again, it's kind of a little bit plain vanilla. And I think the other key, I believe in mentorship, is allowing people to become what they wouldn't have been without you, to enjoy mentorship so you can expand on it. Having your own advisory board, goes a long way, because some people will take you up and other people will take you in different directions. We've got a couple new people, Amit Sunu. Always enjoyed listening to you, Alan. I guess it's somebody that must know you, and that's the benefit of having more people on the stage. Is it's kind of funny on LinkedIn, a couple things. And I think I mentioned this in the past, only 2.2% of the people on LinkedIn who are registered are over 55. And I'm sure that number decreases as age goes up, but it shows you the wealth of opportunity. Some of these people who are experienced and have all this knowledge and want to stay relevant can connect to LinkedIn, because 82% are between 18 and 34. And I think that rounds out both areas. Here's another individual. Great, good one. Thank you for your compliment. Carl, I know you're, working at University of Denver as a professor, and also Colorado State University, went to Belize with a group. I guess that mentorship is as much for the mentor as it is for the mentee, because it allows you to, again, expand your horizons, get into maybe areas of interest that you never had a chance to really focus on when you were just focused on career or monetization. For sure. So Carl, what's your thoughts, and what would your advice to the audience today be?
Well, I think that we've talked about on this show in the past that every day when you get up, you want to focus on doing something better. We're in a constant entrepreneurial improvement process where we need to know more, learn more every day. And we've also talked on this show in the past about building communities. And it's one of the things I'm studying now is, how to build my own community of people who support small businesses and raising capital. And by definition, we're going beyond an advisory board to a community which could be comprised of hundreds of people. But all of them kind of need to be mentors, both to me as another member of the community, but in this case, I'm looking for people who can work with, advise, help, nurture, coach, whatever word we're going to use, to help that small business get better. And so it's interesting, as I work with students at the University of Denver and guest lecture a lot, that you have to work hard to take what you know and bring it down to the level where the person you're talking to can truly understand and absorb it, and use the information you give to them to start working to master the same kind of thing. They're not going to learn everything. It's simply that takes decades to go through all that experience. But your goal is to shorten their path, to make it easier for them to get to where they want to go with the knowledge that you have. And that takes a little bit of practice and skill, I've found, where I have to stop and go, I just can't dump on somebody, and give them something. I need to go, okay, here's how I would do it if I were you. And if I explain it well, they'll go, I got it. I can repeat that. Let me repeat it back to you. And we're all in agreement that they understood what I said.
Okay, well, I think that's a wonderful tip and insight that people can leverage for greater gain. And, I think that the key is, how do you put together your mosaic, right? That makes you a little stronger, a little smarter, a little better without breaking the bank or engaging too deeply, too fast. And I think being responsive is so important, being able to change hands whenever you need to, bring in the right people at the right time. And I think that makes you a more quality resource for the people you're working with. Plus, you're setting the example, right? If it's good enough for you, maybe it's good enough for them. It's too easy to tell somebody what to do than to show people what you're actually doing. And I think the other point that's very important is meeting people where they're at, right? Starting from where they are, not trying to get them to where you are. And it also lends itself to not presume too much, right? And I think asking those right questions at the right time, taking everybody's temperature to make sure everybody's feeling all right and doing all right. Dennis comes back with happy to hop into a coffee shop and agree, meet, pick, and choose people to meet and greet and even mentor. That's really cool, Dennis. We've got Omar, who's got Zoom Party. I've been on it a couple times. My grandson was even on kids group Zoom Party and, won a prize. So I want to thank Omar for being here today. And the other thing is, this is a great opportunity to network with the people on the comment side, as well as people on the stage. That's an easier way to have like a semi-mentor. Is the more you network with like-minded people who are doing things you'd like to do or doing things you are doing, that's where you really go from an audience to a community. And you never know what you never know. And I think this allows everybody to take one step at a time instead of diving into the deep end. So, Alan, what are you learning from this live stream today?
Well, number one, it's the first live stream I've ever done. So just, literally logging in. But yeah, I've learned a lot from all of this. And so, I mean, just even taking it back to like the fundamentals of what a mentor is and like what a coach is. And I mean, like for me, the mentor, it's always been about just sharing. It's not as formalized as a coach. Mentoring is always just much more informal. It's helping whoever the mentee is around what they need rather than developing it around what you think they need. So it's more reactionary than proactive, which is the coach would be proactive to me. I don't know if that's like the formal definition, but for me,
I think that's a quality distinction because, there's a lot of people who don't know, am I coaching? Am I training? Am I mentoring? And I don't think it can fit into just a single box and then switch over to a different definition. I think people have, enough bandwidth to say, okay, this is an area we got to really zero in on, right? And this is an area where it's kind of informal, kind of get to know you. Everybody's kind of feeling their way out. And I think the key to any relationship is how do you build on the last encounter, right? What did you learn that now the next time you can build into it? Because it's really getting that focus. Because again, anybody can talk about anything and anybody can bring up anything, but what are the takeaways? What are the action steps that now someone can take to justify time, effort, and money? Because that's a key element. If we're just hanging out and somewhere doing whatever we're doing, it'd be a lot of fun, but it wouldn't be a lot of meat on the bone, right? And you really feel, that everybody deserves a return on their time and investment. And if someone chooses you, you've got a little bit bigger obligation to prove yourself to yourself as well as the other person. So with that said, Carl, how do you try to make the best use of your time when you're out trying to help somebody who you're just getting to know yourself?
It's a challenge because as I've been working with you to build my community on LinkedIn, I'm more and more relationships every day. And a lot of them are asking, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? And it gets to a point where you go, there's simply not enough time in the day to answer questions all day long. So start looking for ways to speed the process. So I've been working in my newsletter daily to put in lessons or what I call funding points. And if somebody reads that, hopefully that gets them started, or it may answer a question without them having to talk to me one-on-one. I'm also developing an artificial intelligence avatar that I'm training up to be essentially my own cloned knowledge base that can answer questions 24/7, so I can sleep at night and get those good night's sleep that I need at my old age. And then I do a lot of speaking, which is a one-on-many type of mentorship. It's not as reactive as you described, Alan. I really appreciate that distinction where you're trying to have a relationship where you're on standby, you're on call to just give the person the information they need and move them to the next point. It's not so overplanned or overstructured that the person who needs help can't get the help they need without getting too much. I know I'm as bad as anybody where somebody asks me a question and 20 minutes later they're going, no, I had you in the first minute. I got the information I needed. The other 19 minutes wasn't really necessary. So it's important to have these graduations, I think, where you have somebody who can answer a question just enough, not too much, but then also look at thinking about preparing and planning that person, as Don described, where you're trying to set the table where they've made progress and they're one notch closer to being where they want to go. So you're setting the table for a different question tomorrow.
Great answer. And with that, want to recognize Beverly Glazer, who is with me every Tuesday of every month. Beverly is a therapist and coach up in Montreal. She focuses on women's empowerment, typically over 50 years old. What I love about Beverly supporting the show and appearing is it gives me a chance to sing her praises as someone who is just so professional, so valuable in her ability to provide value to others. And you get that back and forth over time. It's like a synchronicity or something that develops. So definitely Beverly, somebody I'd put on my get to know, make a connection with. Dennis looks like he's a DU graduate. DU is a great college. I happily graduated from DU. Is do if you use your education, or if you don't. Learn and listening helps others. Thanks for reminding us by networking live with people we like, the 3 L's, learn, listen, like. We've got a LinkedIn user here who I can only guess. Well, no, we had one here. Good morning, all. Full house today. Always good to have a full house. Dennis, agree, never too late to relate, and today is the date. Now, Beverly, always making her blush. Oh my gosh, Don, thank you so much. It's so well deserved. And I think that's the key, is when you identify somebody of great value, make sure people know it. You don't want to be in the witness protection plan here on LinkedIn or the best kept secret. The reason for being here is to help each other, and everybody can ratchet up together. We're sitting in an ocean of opportunity. Scarcity is not a place you want to be coming from when you can really focus on abundance. And, I think there is that, implied mentorship when you're really working together with somebody, is that, hey, I'm picking up a tip here, a new saying here, a new perspective here. After hundreds of these shows, you do find that, if you were going to check out who you are, you'd be a little Beverly, a little Carl, a little Kelly. It leaves you so much more for you to add on to. It's not a matter of changing as much as fortifying, complementing, and really engineering your best of everything. Now, with that said, there's nobody like Harvey Tuck. Harvey's been with us, 8, 9 months here on the show. Got his own show, the franchise show, I'd say 4 or 5 months ago, is the number of one event on LinkedIn for franchising. Just added a second show on Thursdays, and that's really focused on franchise brand stories and bringing on some great guests. Harvey and I are great collaborators, always putting our heads together, and we have helped each other so much and so many others by sharing, by including people, and really by making it more fun and enjoyable to do things together. That saying, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with somebody else. And here's one more from Dennis. Don, you're such a good commentator. Thanks again. Well, I appreciate that, Dennis. And, again, it becomes more like a community and a family and not an audience when people are showing up every day, supporting each other and doing it genuinely, authentically, and sincerely. And people are getting tired of the rah-rah, the nothing behind the silhouette. So, Alan, how do you stay more authentic and relevant in what you're doing?
I think for me, particularly with LinkedIn, one of the first people I really connected with back when I started the company, he was like, you need to find your voice and you need to develop what that voice is so that you can be authentic to that voice. And given what I do, it's like whether or not I necessarily will be, I'll never jump in and troll anybody, obviously. But at the same time, if I see what I call a one-hit wonder, like all the people that post the single quotes and then walk away from it, it's like, well, that's worthless. It's like there's so little detail that you can't work with it. So I'll go in and try to add some value. And it's add some context around that or my experiences around that. And so that's how I try to remain authentic and provide value where I see value. I do the same with my own posts.
Well, that's great. And I think, LinkedIn and the way we do things gives everybody a chance to put a toe in the water, kind of feel it out, decide how they want to continue to approach it. And, everybody in one way or another is a work in progress. And the key is, how do you progress and how do you build on, past successes or new insights? And I think that's the other key is, what do you bring to the table today? Right? There's too many people are focused on legacy, on their past, on what they did, but can they really repeat it? Can they really reinvent themselves and be more relevant as time goes on? Well, here's a new person I haven't seen. Danielle says, great points, Alan. Another fan of Alan. Well, Alan's bringing the best of the best today. Harvey says, thank you, Don. You're a legend. Always good to be here. I've enjoyed our journey and mentoring and learning together, and it doesn't take much or it doesn't take many, but it takes really working closely with the ones you have to make things better and not just superficial. So when you get Carl and Harvey, Beverly and Kelly and Dave and Con and all the other people that we put together and have come together for our bi-weekly Thursday Zoom group, where all of us get together and say, here's what we learned in the last 2 weeks. How do we share this? How do we benefit from it? And now all of a sudden, you've got an accelerated learning curve and knowledge share. Dennis says, agree, it's our choice to have an important voice. And that's what this gives people. So many people have been dependent on gatekeepers, qualifying, fitting in. And a lot of times to fit in, you're making an accommodation. You sometimes have to dilute yourself. and why not take control? And I think that's what everybody wants, is the ability that, hey, like Carol does every day, a newsletter. I do a post every day. I do a poll every day. And it becomes a discipline. And if you enjoy it because it's getting better, it keeps you in the game, right? If you're just doing same old that you always did, it's hard to stay motivated and it's hard to stay fresh. Here's Beatrice. So many people might not even know that their throat chakra is blocked, that keeping them voiceless. Thank you for all the knowledge to help us with unblocking, nature healing. Thank you for that perspective and that different insight. So Carl, we're getting a real good mixture today of so many different voices with so many different directions. How do you speak to that?
Well, I have a question for Alan, because this is an ongoing challenge for me, where I want to recognize everyone who helps me, helps one of my clients I'm working with. And as Don pointed out, in a startup, quite often you can't afford to pay, I will call it market rates, to the person for the talent and the experience that they're bringing to the table. So how would you go about, or what do you commonly do to recognize, short of a paycheck, people who give you help or are mentoring someone within your group?
Well, depending on the situation, I obviously recognize people on LinkedIn, where I figure that most people see the recognition when it comes out. Everybody, as soon as they sign up as an instructor, their picture and their bio is right on the homepage. So to make sure, because being what it is, the mentors are the heart of everything. There's nothing more important than the people that are working with me on that. So I want to make sure they're front and center. And likewise, as they're going through, while I make sure there's no sales involved with it, because I don't want to deal with that. And it's the same reason I do charge for a membership, because I don't want to have YouTube has all the ads and stuff come up. I don't want that. So I will let them say, hey, I work for this company. This is what I do, to make sure that everybody appreciates where they're coming from. And while that's not sales, it's context, and context is important, because you need to understand their background, why they think the way they do, to understand where they're coming from and the commentary.
Okay, Carl.
So I'm going through a list of things as part of my article this morning that I wrote, where I'm talking about different forms of recognition within a community. And there's been a lot of work done over the last couple of decades in the wisdom of the crowd, different things that people can contribute to each other within communities. And I'm finding that I need to create either a 5-star Amazon rating, where I can check a box and go this, but I also need to know that somebody actually did something. So it's a little bit of transactional recording. So if I mentor someone or somebody mentors me, I would like to declare that mentorship occurred just as an event, so people see that this person's being helpful and they're doing things along that line. And if they do a really superlative job, then I'd like to give a shout out to them and go, hey, look at this person. They're doing great work. I'm feeling smarter by the moment. So I'm looking at these different ways of doing this, where we're trying to give them, as you say, the recognition, and do it in a way that causes the person to think, I enjoyed this. I felt recognized. I want to come back and do it again. There's a lot of articles that came out recently that says that an employee, the most valuable thing they get out of their job is respect, by the business, by the company they're working for. The paycheck is secondary, because if they don't get the respect, they're not going to work there anyway. So I'm interested in all these different ways of interacting with people, how we go about recognizing them in a way that gives them that payback, that feeling that will cause them to come back and do it again.
Well, and also I did want to add, because it goes back to something you were talking about earlier, because I think you, with your mentoring coaching, are coming to kind of where I was when I was starting this. Because I was running out of time too, and I was looking for a better way to do that. And so what I was finding with the virtual mentoring, and this kind of goes along the lines with, it's not the same thing, and it needs to be used appropriately, because there's, huge value for doing live mentoring, but you can only do so much so fast, because it is one-on-one by its own nature, short of boards and such. So part of what I was doing is I was realizing, as I was putting together programming for my professional society, that if I was able to have the basic stuff recorded, that like the students, young professionals, because there's a new student, graduating every year, so it needs to be like recurrent. But we can't keep doing the same thing over again within the society, because we have to keep putting out new stuff for all the live things we are doing. So by building up a virtual library, we can tell the students, young professionals, for the basic stuff, go look over here, and then as then you can, whether it's as you graduate from that, you start talking into the live stuff, or you can do it in tandem depending on how it is. But it gives you the ability to have so much more content available for them than you're able to do by yourself.
Great point. And I think the key is continuous learning, continuous access to new and different people, and eventually you build your team, right? So it's not always adding, now it's working it. It's finding the right time and place for everybody, and also the ability to include people, because I think, Carl made a great point with recognition. A lot of times people are working in a vacuum until they get feedback, right? They just, hey, I think I'm doing pretty good. I think I'm building value. And shows like this are a great opportunity to recognize the best of the best, right? So if Alan had a show and he said, this show is going to be about my top 2 or 3 performers or superstars this month. And what you're doing is not only recognizing them, but exposing them to a bigger audience, to the ability to network. And, if you're going to work, why not give it all? And why not do it all? And also, why not be it all? And the best way to promote yourself is having someone else do it for you, right? Nobody likes the self-promotional person who gets on the stage, pats themselves on the back, tells everybody how great they are, and actually they're diminishing their value over time because they're taking that away from somebody. It's like, here's a joke, I'm going to laugh for you, it's a great joke, and I'm going to tell you another joke. And there's so many people who I've seen do live streams, and they bring a guest on and they don't treat them like a guest, right? They just treat them like part of the audience that's visible. I've been on shows where I think I might have talked 8 minutes out of the hour. And I wonder, why am I even here? And I'm sure the audience is asking the same question, because you earn the audience's next participation by what you brought to the last presentation. Because everybody only has 24 hours in a day. Everybody has to make decisions every day. And wherever the value's being received and appreciated is where you're going to gravitate to. And people have many choices. And I think that's why audience always has to come first. I think co-hosts have to come next. And you can stay last, right? Because you choose to be here, right? And you choose to come back here. Not everybody else has to. And you also have to be distinctive and differentiate yourself from what makes a good show. I always ask myself, that's why I recognize every comment and every person, is people who took the time to think of something, type something, and never get shown. It really takes the motivation from doing that away, or making like, hey, I'm not important. I'm not as valuable as somebody else who's got all these degrees or all these accomplishments. But at the end of the day, everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a voice. Everybody's got a life. And everybody should be respected for that. And especially in this day and age where there's so little civility, there's so many people talking louder, angrier, that it's nice to bring the conversation back to the coffee table and make everybody feel like they have a seat at the table. So, Carl, what do you think about inclusion?
Well, I think it's important. I mean, as you point out, I'm happy to tell people how wonderful I am, but I'm clearly a biased source. So most people don't listen to me when I start talking about myself. But I think it's important for a lot of people on it was a book I was involved with a number of years ago. It was titled Everyone's an Expert. And the point I was trying to make was that if you know more than someone else about a particular topic, you're in a position to help other people around you who don't have that same knowledge. And people get caught up sometimes today thinking, I got to be the best. I got to be number one on this list or that list, or I've got to have all these attributes, as you call them, Don, degrees and this, that, and the other before they can help somebody else. And the point I was trying to make was that if you know just a little more, something that somebody else needs to know, then you can help out. And an example, I was doing a presentation on this topic, and I said, who has an area of expertise? And we'll test this theory of mine. And somebody held up their hand. I said, what do you do? He says, I know how to drive a tractor. Now, I grew up on a farm, so wasn't going to help me. But I said, okay, now who else in this room, about 200 people, would like to learn how to drive a tractor? About 14 hands went up. And I said, here, we have a opportunity for somebody with knowledge to share that knowledge with other people. And if you monetize it, good for you. But as a mentor, you could be showing all these other people, and you don't have to have a degree in tractor driving if they even have such a thing. And you can share your knowledge and help people out simply by letting them learn what you've learned.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, because so many people keep learning the same thing the same way from the same type of people, right? When you can really bring new subject matter in, something that may not be directly related to their profession or their business, but is something personally they want to learn a little bit more. And it also brings a little variety to the conversation. When you get off topic, but you get on a different topic that you never planned. And that's what these shows, I think, personify, is all we have is a word called mentorship. And from there, it's wherever the audience wants to take it or the hosts want to take it. And the other thing is, when you have an hour, nobody's under the gun, right? If you only have 4 minutes to make your case, make yourself known, naturally, you're going to be pumping it hard and focus just on the highlights, as opposed to, hey, this reminds me of something, or this reminds me of somebody. And I think that's the real key, is mentorship can really kind of give you a better focus, kind of break that loop that goes on in your head that's, keeps adding the same equation up the same way, when sometimes you got to break the mold. Sometimes you got to get out of your comfort zone. There is that little bit of pain for some, short-term pain for long-term gain approach. And, I think people want to be at times uncomfortably comfortable. And I've had so many people come on the show who are just outstanding. And what makes them even more outstanding is their unselfishness. I can tell you, many people have come on and I hardly knew much about them, but they went out of their way to promote somebody else's book who was on, to bring some value to it. And, people judge you or view you how you treat other people, because that's how they're going to expect to be treated. They're looking for a kind individual, a thoughtful individual, a good listener, and not just somebody who can pour knowledge to them or through them. And, I think it's making everybody feel a little bit better for the time they spend with you, to want to replicate that feeling going forward. Dennis comes back with, agree, recognize the best of the best and pass the test before you rest. Beverly, Carl, not true, you're great. Can't say enough about Beverly. I'll try in time. Dennis comes back with, agree, inclusion is so much more important than exclusion. Harvey comes back with, Carl, what a great and simple story of how to add value. And, I think that's the key. is this, goes beyond us to the audience. But this is not just an audience. These are thought leaders. These are people with networks of influence. So when they're sharing what we're sharing with them, it expands that way. But even beyond that, there's going to be people who see this for years to come, who will never meet, know, or fully appreciate, who will get the benefit of this knowledge. So, it's a continual ripple effect. And Dennis, who's been great today, agreed, get on top of the topic, is the best pick. So Alan, this has been a fast-paced, hold your hat type of show. What's one of your biggest takeaways from now 50 minutes into it?
I think my biggest takeaway is that, when it comes to mentorship, everybody has similar experiences in different ways. Because like so much of what Carl was saying, I can directly relate to from the things that I'm working on as well. Like how he was, with the topic of inclusion. I work in the same way with that, because my whole notion is I don't want to be the expert. I want to bring in the expert. That's the entire point. And I work with professionals from across the board, because if I'm going to talk to some other industry that I don't have experience with, I don't want to tell them what they should know, what they should be talking about. And I imagine like most mentors are in a similar situation. We have our area of expertise, but how do you help people when you're outside of that area of expertise? And it's so interesting. And whether you want to call yourself a coach or a mentor or what have you, trainers. I'll put trainer on a different level, because trainer is usually much more specific about like a much more technical topic. But like the coaches and mentors, it's usually more esoteric. It can be about technical topics. I've certainly talked about technical topics myself. But it's just kind of usually what they need to help them avoid making mistakes, or to help them get to where they need to go and take the next steps without you don't necessarily want to handhold them. You want to give them, a map so they can see what roads are in front of them. And then you can kind of describe what that map looks like. If you go this direction, what that could mean. If you go this direction, what that could mean. If you go this direction, don't do this, because I've made that mistake myself. Point out the potholes so they don't fall into them too. To me, that's kind of like the core of what it is to be a mentor. It's helping them so that they can get to where they want to go without making the same mistakes that you made.
Yeah, I think those are excellent points, because if you can save time, if you can save money, if you can save from having to do the same thing over again that you might have avoided, everybody wants to progress, and the last thing I want to do is one step forward, two steps back. It makes you question things. And I think whether you're a trainer, a coach, a mentor, I think being a friend in a professional way is so important. Having empathy, having compassion, telling somebody, I know exactly how you feel. I felt the same way till I found this out. Or I've been through that, and I know people have been through that. You can get through it, right? Because some people are questioning themselves at a certain point, not just questioning the question. They're thinking, am I good enough? Am I strong enough? And sometimes one person by themselves will never be enough. Not if you're looking to leverage something, not if you're looking to scale something, because if it's just you, there's not enough you, there's not enough time of you. And why not bring more people to the party? I'd rather be one of 10 who are doing things great collectively than being the lone wolf out there trying to conquer things. And there are individualists out there, and there are lone wolves, and out of 1 billion people, there should be. But for the people who say, I might be able to do it on my own, but why? Why not include some people in it? And I think that's where another key element of mentorship comes in, is trust. Do I really trust this person? Two things: to know what they're talking about, but also to know me well enough to talk to me about it and allow me to get to know them. And, no one should have thin skin. and I always found if you make it about it and not you, it goes a lot better, right? So if you just focus on what it is, the mission at hand, not why did they say that, because you're getting yourself distracted at that point. Sometimes you can't throw the baby out without the bathwater, however that goes. So Carl, this has been a fascinating conversation. It seems like it always tests us to include new people who have new directions and different experiences to see where we're at in that scale.
Yeah, so what I'm taking away from Alan's comments is that a perfect mentor would be somebody who's always available, just in time knowledge, and that just enough, meaning that I don't want to take a semester long course, to learn everything there is to learn about a topic. I need enough to answer whatever the problem is that's in front of me today. But most importantly, and you hit on this a little bit, Don, is that the mentor has to know the person they're talking to well enough to give them personalized information. It can't just be generic. It can't be this fits everybody. And even if it appears to be generic information, it still needs to be fitted to that particular person, that particular situation. Because the question, that you asked today probably is going to be different from the same question asked 4 weeks from now. And the mentor has to understand the mentee, what their situation is, what they know, and have watched their progress as they develop to say, here's what you need to know today. I want to help you move forward. I don't want to dump the whole kitchen sink on you. I want to help you move.
Yeah, and I think knowing that the person you're mentoring has to come first, right? And because it might have been weeks or days or whatever since the last get together, what has changed, right? So not everything is static. And what do you need now? What have you learning? What don't you need anymore? Because you need them to guide you in order for you to properly guide them and make it relevant, right? Because I can talk about anything and maybe some of it has value, but what do you need? The other aspect that I'm starting to appreciate is mentorship is like seasoning, right? You usually have the main dish that you're after. You just don't know how to properly prepare it, season it, make it as attractive, as delicious as it could be. And there's some pride in teamwork, of knowing you couldn't have done it without that person, even if they're playing a 5% role. The goal is to get someone over the finish line, make them want to get to the next starting line. Because, there is no outcome. It's only a continuum, right? This got you to here, but tomorrow's another day. Where are you going to go then? And how are you going to get there? And who are you going to take with you? And who are you going to leave behind? So I think association and disassociation is so important. They say you're the factor of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Where are they going? What's their opportunity for success? And can you follow along or lead as well as that? Before switching it over to final words to Alan, Dennis comes back with agree trusting is still so much better than rusting, for sure. And Beatrix says, so this is what it feels like to hang out with real gentlemen. Happy. Well, happy for you too. And I think, at the end of the day, happiness should be the rule of thumb. Are you happy with yourself? Are you happy with your direction? Are you happy with your future? If you can get to that point, you are already successful in building on it. So, final words, Alan.
Final words. So, well, number one, I love your analogy with the seasoning. That's amazing, because I completely agree with that. So, you have your recipe. That's what you're getting when you come out of college. You have your basic idea of how stuff's supposed to be done, and you're moving forward with that. When you're cooking, that's daily life, and it's figuring out how to actually make it. And yeah, the mentoring is the seasoning to figure out how to make it that much better. So yeah, that's amazing. I'll use that myself. I'm still on that.
Well, I think that's a takeaway in itself. Go ahead.
But yeah, beyond that, thank you again for having me on. This has been amazing, and certainly like a great first experience for me for doing a live stream. So Carl, fantastic to meet you, and I hope we can connect and stay in touch afterwards. And Don, thank you so much.
Well, my pleasure. And everybody that comes on the show, it's our responsibility to get them back to the port that we left from safely. So we take that very seriously. Carl, you're the closer today.
I just will follow up on your comments and Alan's comments. Just when you serve me my food, just cover everything with chocolate and it'll be fine. So
we can't beat that. So go out there, buy a pound of chocolate and eat it slowly and savor it. So with that said, I want to invite everybody back in 23 hours. It's Beverly and myself again, and it only gets better. Wednesday, we've got Carl back, focusing on what he focuses most, which is funding. And then Thursday, we've got Kelly coming back. And Kelly, I can't talk enough about her. She has the awesome journey. Actually, while we have a little time, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, Carl has his show. 11 a.m. Eastern Time, I have my show. At 12 p.m., Harvey has his show, the franchise show. At 1 p.m., Kelly has the awesome journey with Christy Howard. So if you got 4 hours of a lot of great time and interest, tune in to as many as you can. And, I'm so proud that over 30 people who had never even appeared on a show now have their own shows because of this. And that's a legacy that will continue to live further and better. So with that said, thank you, Alan. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, audience. We'll talk again. Bye.